Oh, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of First Canada Live. I'm your host, Karthikeyanagus of Apathy, and we have so much to talk about tonight. But first, to get us started, as Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging, of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home before it was given this name. This is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. All right, folks, to get us started, I think we need some co-hosts. So, welcoming two of our stars from the First Canada Youth Council, we have Brandon H. from Team 4917, Sir Lancerbot from Elmira, and Ren T from Team 166135, Arctos from Toronto. How's it going, Brandon? How's it going, Ren?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this episode. Some awesome events have just happened. It's great to be able to discuss them.
Well, I'm excited to have both of you here. Brandon, I know you were at both Durham and Waterloo. Ren, you were at Waterloo. And Ren, before that, we've already recapped the Centennial event, but you were there. Congratulations on that big win. That was really exciting. So we have two folks who've been to a lot of events, have been seeing things on. Ren, I know you're on the drive team for 6135, so you've seen things up close, and Brandon's been watching intently. And Brandon, you were on our Newmarket recap show earlier.
I was.
Yeah, you're back again. So it'll be interesting to talk to you just kind of about how the game on that show we
Yeah.
talked about how we thought the game was going to change. And so I think the game has changed a little bit. We're through 4 weeks of competitions. We've played 7 of our 9 district events in Ontario. It's it's wild to think
That's
about.
yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy.
Uh
Yeah.
you want to hear something wilder? 1 week and 1 day from now, teams will be loading into by this point, 1 week and 1 day from now, teams will have already loaded in at the provincial championship.
That's crazy.
It's just everything is flying. It's so exciting. But we can't talk about provincials yet because we have 4 events to talk about. That's right. We're talking about Durham College, Humber Polytechnic, University of Water,
Lou.
and the North Bay District event. So, folks, if you've got any questions throughout the show, drop them in chat and we'll be happy to answer them. And of course, folks, remember why we're here. We're here to have fun and celebrate excellence in our community. So let's keep the comments positive and let's celebrate some gracious professionalism. All right, folks, let's talk about wellness. What are you doing right now to keep yourself together? Brandon, maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, of course. So I love going on walks, just throwing on my headphones and I just find it a great way to clear my head. So I'll go on like a little walk that I've just kind of made around town. Living in like a small town, I can kind of just like have a little way. There's like no traffic ever, so I just get to walk along the streets with nothing happening, and it's just a great way to just clear my head almost.
Brandon, I love that. I know I'm a big fan of going on walks and going for runs. And I, again, like my neighborhood backs onto like a little parkette, so I can go through there and then connect to uh, it connects to like the valleys and everything. So I'm a big fan of that. And actually at Humber, during the event, because for those of you who weren't at Humber, that was like the 2 days where the weather just got spectacular in Southern Ontario and it was like 20 degrees. I was just like, you know what? I'm going for a run. And I just ran for 4 kilometers, like two K back there and 2K back around the campus or whatever. And it just felt so my feet killed me afterwards because I didn't have proper running shoes. I was running in my Jordans and jeans, but it was worth it. It was good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, good time for all. What about you, Red?
Well, just about that weather, I remember going on my own. I don't walk that much, but going able to walk just because it just you needed to be outside. It was that beautiful. For me, I absolutely love reading, specifically fantasy or historical fiction. But I've been trying just to read a bit more about everything. But I find that it's just really, really nice to step back from my screen, pull out a book, especially like something physical to hold, and just get really comfy. So I find that's my way just to take a break, not do any work, and just look at some words for a bit.
Ren, what's the book that you've enjoyed the most recently?
I believe I'm reading The Handmaid's Tale. I know I don't believe I am reading The Handmaid's Tale right now. I'm rereading it again for English, but reading it with fresh eyes is so fascinating, especially because I'm having to critically think a lot more because I'm going to talk about that in some seminars. But being forced to critically think is there's so much meaning and symbolism, and Margaret Atwood is just a fantastic author. So I would say if you have some time, pick up The Handmaid's Tale because it's really phenomenal.
I do love Margaret Atwood, and Handmaid's Tale is one of my favorites. I read it in high school as well, and so it's a good one. Here, Ren, I'll give you one. If you're into historical fiction and with a twist of fantasy, have you read The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick?
I I don't believe I have.
So it's an alternative history book. So it posits us in a world like in modern day, but what would have happened if the Axis powers had won World War II? So if the Nazis, fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan had won. And so at this point, so now America is divided, where half is controlled by Japan and half is controlled by Germany, in the same way that Germany was divided, with half being controlled by Russia after the war and half being controlled by British and America. And so it's a really, really, but then I don't want to give too much away, but there's definitely a fantasy twist in the novel. So I think you'd like it.
That sounds crazy, and I would love, love, love to read that. So
Yeah.
I guess I have to pop by the library soon to look for that.
Yeah, and if you prefer, there's also a TV version of it on Amazon, I believe. It's pretty good too, but the book is like really, really good. Ren, we got our first comment in chat from none other than one of our first Canada MCs, Emily Forrester, who says, "OMG, I love your earrings, Ren."
Well, thank you, Emily. I'll be looking forward to seeing hopefully her because I'll be volunteering at McMaster, so I can show them off then too. I want to get a blue
Yep.
one too, so they match with the real
Emily
occasion.
will be our game announcer at McMaster. I know she's ready for that one and really excited, and will also be one of our MC's game announcers at the provincial championship. But before we do any of that, couple news updates, only a couple now because we're getting down to the season, folks. But just a reminder, so we are back next week with a recap of McMaster and Windsor, and if the divisions are out at that point, a preview of provincials. We don't know if the divisions will be out at that point, by hopefully they are. And then the week after that, we'll be doing a wrap up of the provincial championship with a look ahead to Worlds. And then we're going to take a few weeks. We're going to go to Worlds. We're going to give everyone a rest. And then hopefully, when we have two or three or four Ontario teams who have won the World Championship, we will be bringing them on for our Worlds recap. But actually, we'll be bringing some of our success stories, no matter what those successes are. And successes at championship can come in a lot of different ways. But we'll have a lot of teams on that one. But yeah, we want some Einstein representation. It's been a while since we've had a Canadian champion. I think it's a little bit overdue. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
And I think when we look at the stats in a moment, we'll see that Ontario is here to play. But before we do that, we got to take a look at a word from one of our sponsors, Hatch.
When I was applying for co-ops, I was really looking for a place that would allow me to have the greatest amount of experience. And since Hatch is such a big company, I knew that I would be able to get involved with all the different groups that the company offers.
What surprised me about working at Hatch was the amount of responsibility that you're given very quickly, like once you start.
There's so many opportunities to learn, not just from specialists in the field, but also from something like Lunch and Learns, or even Safety Shares. So it's not something technical that I'm learning, but something that might help me in my everyday life.
For me to be able to just walk into their office and ask them whatever I want, to schedule a meeting whenever I want, to be able to work directly with them on building things was an insanely good experience.
As a student, I am as much valued as the other employees that are here.
I enjoy working here because people are very friendly, and this environment that they created has been more than absolute perfect.
All right, thank you, Hatch. All right, folks. To help us discuss all the Reefscape happenings from across the past four events here in Ontario, please welcome First Canada MC and alum 2022 North Bay Volunteer Appreciation Award winner, Sydney Lamorea. Hey, Sydney.
Hey, How are you?
I am doing good. Hey, Sydney, guess what? Can I tell the world your big news? Can I? Can I?
I guess.
So not only is Sydney a First Canada MC, but Sydney will be one of the MCs on a division at the First Championship this year. So congratulations to Sydney.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to you representing Canada and representing Ontario proudly at Worlds.
Thank you. It's actually my first time ever going to Worlds, and so it's going to be, I know it's even more exciting.
Yep.
I'm thrilled. I'm so honored. It's going to be a really amazing time.
Sydney, you started in first in 2012?
I started in first in 2009.
2009. Oh, wow. So 16 years, and now you're going to Worlds. Congratulations. That's very, very
So
exciting.
much.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Sydney, thank you for being here. And so, Brandon was at Durham and Waterloo. Ren was at Waterloo. Sydney was at North Bay. I was at Durham and Humber. So we've got all the events covered here between the four of us. But let's talk generally about where we are in Ontario right now. And so, Julia, if you want to bring up our stats slides, and I will get my trusty magical pen out. All right, it's loading. Here we go. All right, folks, it's interesting now. So every time we've looked at this chart, this is Ontario teams by EPA. EPA is a representative of scoring using a bunch of various calculations, tally up on the x-axis auto and endgame on the y-axis. For the last 3 years that we've been doing this, we've had one team out here by themselves, 2056. But guess what? They have company. The gap isn't as big. Here's 2056, arguably the best team in the world right now. Some teams would say 1323. Some might say 2910. I say 2056. I'm biased. I'm from Ontario. But Team Dave is right here. Now, I'll put a disclaimer on this stat. EPA is a cumulative stat, and 2056 has only been to one event. Team Dave has been to 2 events. They've had more matches to build cumulative EPA. So it's not a fair apples to apples comparison. But they're there. And also, we've got another tier right here. 4678 and 5409. 4678, Brandon, Ren, you saw them in Waterloo. They've only played once. So they will have a chance to accumulate more at Windsor. But they're right there. 5409, who made an incredible leap from their first event, which they were very good at. I mean, they won. They won Newmarket, but they got even better at North Bay without an algae mechanism. With an algae mechanism. Sydney, help me out.
I think they had an algae mechanism. I could be wrong. I was just focusing on how fast they got that coral on the reef. It was astounding.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just like back and forth coral cycles, forth coral cycles. Another tier, we got the Alpha Dogs up here, who we saw in that North Bay final. Waffles, Brandon, we saw them at Durham. How good they looked right there. 1114, they've only been to one event. They definitely have room to improve. These teams are all 4152. Saw them at North Bay. Saw what they could do with 5409. There's just all this awesomeness in Ontario right now. It's amazing. But so let's put this in context. Let's take a look at the top teams in Ontario in terms of the world rankings. Next slide. So we have 7 teams in the top 100 and 10 in the top 120. Now, again, only played once, only played once, only played once, only played once. So I would assume that those 4 teams are going to take a little bit of a bump here. OP 4th in the world, Team Dave. This is just Ontario, folks. Red, go ahead.
I say it's incredible just being able, I've only been again to 2 events and volunteering, be it provincials as well, but watching these robots, these mechanical masterpieces, do what they do best is mind-blowing. Getting to play, I guess, against Cybercavs and Dave during the playoffs at Waterloo. Like it's
So
magical almost, I feel, just seeing how well that they're able to work together and just how well like the robots themselves function is
well, yeah,
crazy.
and Rexdale Makerspace in chat reminds us that 5409 does not have an algae mech right now. And so 12th in the world without doing algae and without doing a deep climb. 2056, no deep climb. 2056, no deep climb for now. 3683, no deep climb for now. 1114, no deep climb for now. Like, these teams are doing it by focusing on less. And it's 2200, no deep climb for now. I say for now because you never know what's going to show up in this new era of FRC, where you can just make modification. Sydney and I are from the old era where we had to stuff our robots in bags, and then weren't able to make modifications to them. But and I mean, it just shows like what happens if some of these teams whose end game EPA is like 2 or 3 point. Well, Waffles have a deep climb, just isn't working really well. But like when their end game EPA gets up to like a 10.9, like 75-58, there's room for these teams to get better, and that's what's so impressive right now. And it's I mean, okay, 11-14, 63rd in the world. They went 9-7. That's how hard it is in Ontario with how good they like. I think like 6 of those losses were to OP or something silly like that. But that's four
Of
of them,
course.
at least, or whatever. Then other teams, Chargers 32-2 on the season, just cooking, and to do that against consistently having to play all these top teams. Dave 31-3 again. Like Dave took multiple losses at Waterloo because that's how good Waterloo was. So we're going to talk about all these events individually, but I'm just saying the Ontario teams are on fire right now. I think this might be the best we've seen Ontario teams. Part of me wants to say since 2017, but I think we might be going back to 2013. This is just fire that we have going on right here. It is wild. All right, let's drop this slide and just talk a little bit more about things. So let's go rapid fire because we have a lot to talk about this weekend. What impressed you this most about the events you were at? Starting off, Sydney, you're ready. Go.
All right, so team spirit, which has been absolutely huge in North Bay in the past, but teams have been putting in so much work this year. Like talking with 7476, they put in 11 hours of work just on team spirit. 1334 handmade bracelets, like friendship bracelets. Astronaut 4152 made 250 different button designs, and they're working on even more for provincials. And that's not even counting like all the 3D printed merchandise, like the earrings, the tiny sheps. There's so much going on
Whoa,
this
whoa, whoa,
year.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
There's
back up.
3D printed Shep the Sheeps, and it's amazing.
There's little baby Sheps?
There's little tiny baby Sheps, and they're so cute.
Ba,
Yeah,
ba.
they're amazing.
Oh my goodness,
Uh,
I need a baby Shep.
I
I
also
think you
need
do.
one like now.
Yeah, they come in
Need
purple
one.
and they come in
I
white.
I haven't seen my buddy Shep all season long.
You
So,
can hang out with Shep. Shep's got a
I,
tail.
I,
Shep's got
I
accessories. He has a handmade bikini top that was hand crocheted by Cameron on 2706.
yeah,
Like
I
these
heard
teams are pulling out non-robotic skills to help boost and support their teams.
I heard Shep. Yeah, I heard about Shep's bathing suit. I saw it on the first Canada Flicker. So Shep's ready for the water game. That's okay. We can't turn this into a Shep show. We can't turn this into
Oh,
We'll
as
talk
much as
about
I
Shep
want
later. There's another
to.
segment where we can talk when we get to North Bay, we'll talk about Shep. But okay, Sydney's impressed by team spirit. Brandon?
The gracious professionalism I've seen in the last 2 weeks is just like unmatched. Like I'm just because I've saw my mentors do it when 4907 had their sad breakdown when they hit the reef in one of their qualifying matches. Two of my mentors, like one manufactured a part at home and another drove the 2 hours home, picked up the part and drove the 2 hours back to help them. And then after that, we were starting each other's chants the entire weekend when we were playing against each other. We were starting each other's chants. And it's just that like sense of community, even though you're playing against each other, even though one will win, one will lose, you're still there and you're working on it with each other. And it's just that great like community.
That's fabulous. Red?
I think I would like combine both of theirs, or more so just to tag along to Brandon's gracious professionalism. as a team with somewhat less resources, going to competitions and suddenly having like people so willing to help out. You say like, oh, I need this thing, someone runs off and they come back in less than like 5 seconds. It's like, here we go, it's perfect, we can start like fixing this now. And being able to do that again for other teams, and just seeing that competition and seeing the community that being able to build, and in Ontario just seeing it be so tight knit. I like an example I found, like when you told me, I was like, that is the most adorable thing I have ever heard, and it just makes me so happy to be part of this greater community. And yeah, it's beautiful to see.
I think one thing that's I'm always wowed by is when, pit admin makes an announcement, team XYZ is looking for something. It's just like the rush of teams basically racing to get out there to give them what they need is fantastic. All right. In terms of strategy, anything that surprised you this week?
Not so much of a surprise, but we've seen algae start to be used a lot more. I think in the early stages it was very heavy push for coral, but now seeing like Dave almost every cycle they do an algae and then a coral and then an algae and then a coral and they're just going back and forth between the two.
I think it was bound to happen, like so in Waterloo when you have Dave and the Cavs who are filling the reef at least levels 2 through 4. At that point, you need to be doing algae because like the level 1, at only being worth 2 points in tally up versus a 4 that you're getting for putting it up in the barge, you have to. And as much as I've been impressed by teams that have kind of been able to ignore algae this far and do really, really well, I think at the highest levels, like alliances, you need to be putting 9 in the barge. And we probably need to see like more algae going directly into the barge and less going into the processor at the highest levels. I think like before you get that in qualifying, process to all your heart's content. Those 6 points are big, and you're still getting an edge of how you do it. But I think, yeah, I it's interesting, Brandon, because you're surprised by how much it was used. I'm still surprised that there's not more being used. But I think we're going to get there. And we saw a couple matches in Waterloo where like alliances had like 11, 12, 13 in there. And then you get into the mechanics of where it's like not as easy of a shot for the human player because you have to deal with the other ones. Have to put a little bit backspin on there exactly as Sydney does the universal disco.
And it's out.
There we go. There we go. Sydney, what surprised you this week?
I think we touched on a little bit. I was surprised how many robots weren't going for any hang. Like I saw 0 shallow hangs set up at the beginning of a match, lots of deep hangs, but then I saw most robots just going to park. They didn't even try the hang at all. They just went up, did a speedy little park at the end, and they were just really focusing on getting all that coral on the reef.
Yeah, the deep climb is a hard challenge. It was by not easy. And it's like it would be easy. No, I shouldn't say easy, but it wouldn't be that difficult to just design a robot on its own to do it. But to fit it in on a robot is where it gets really challenging. And I think some by design teams were just like, it's too much, we're not going to do it. Or some by, let's work on everything else and then we'll get to the deep climb later. And then it's like, oh, where do we put this thing? It's challenging in that way. And so I think a lot of again, best team in the world, 2056 doesn't have a deep climb. So yet, so it's you can do it. And like, I mean, we've been saying it for years. Do fewer things better, and that's what the Ontario teams and they hit the ball out of the park. Strategic design. Ren, for you, surprises?
This is a surprise, but one more thing I guess that I really saw Sean at Waterloo was just getting that auto and barge RP and how much that helps because oh my goodness, 3 RP for winning a match and a potential 6. To me, I still look at these numbers and I'm like, I get surprised at the end of a match that like, whoa, 6? It's crazy. But definitely like my team, like we're really happy to have just that 1 call auto and just I've also I think I heard Durham like there was a push auto where you could help your alliance by being able to push
the
them
tush push. Yeah.
And also when you have that one robot that can do that deep climb, perhaps like they're more specialized and they do. I think I saw some robots at Waterloo that were deep climb and algae. I think that was 4940. They did that really well. And that's as long as someone speeds over at that last minute to park, there is 2 RP with barge and auto.
Those RP are absolutely huge. In North Bay, 5409 was #1 ranked seed for most of the game and got swapped out with 610 at the end, despite having a better win-loss ratio. And it's because 610 got all those RPs. So you really can't sleep on the RPs.
Yeah, and I mean that was 6-10 with that dash of a comeback there to take the number one seed and then pick the Alpha Dogs. That was it was I was out on Sunday morning, so hadn't watched. And I kind of in my brain was like, oh, 5409's got this. Then I get a text message from a friend on 610, and it's like he goes, oh, that was a battle getting that number one seed. I was like, whoa, what didn't see that one coming. But with 6 RPs, it's like the whole thing, and for everyone watching, like when we say as the MCs, we kind of say it on Friday or the end of day one. Make sure everyone's working on your list. Anyone can move up into a picking position, blah, blah, blah. It's so true this year. 6 RP matches can really, really flip things. So it is definitely a lot. Okay, running out of time here. Ren, Brandon, Sydney, as either youth council members or an MC this year, you received gracious professionalism pins to hand out. I would love to hear the stories of who you handed your pins out to, or like one story of someone that you handed a pin out to. Sydney.
Yeah, so I like just to shout out volunteers for a moment. Volunteers are also eligible to get these gracious professionalism pins, and they make all of our events possible. And some of them are ordinary people, but a lot of them are mentors or alumni or current students. So I think it's really big to think about people not only helping their team as a student, but helping all teams as a volunteer at an event. And for me, I gave my pin to the volunteer in the quiet room, because our quiet rooms are an essential part of FIRST. It's not the most exciting, it's not the most luxurious job, but they were reflecting to me on how important and how invaluable it was for them to see these kids that actually need these quiet spaces. And I was like, you're right, it made my heart weep. I was like, gracious professionalism right here. You're at a robotics event, you're not even near the robots.
I love it, Sydney. What about you, Red?
I would say, Sydney, that was beautiful, and I really like, as someone like sounds can get really big sometimes, having a place to go was really nice. I gave my pen to Thomas Steele from 9062. I think he also helped RI he was the LRI when I was at Waterloo, and he also was helping RIing at Centennial. But really, he was always showing up to our pit, Arctos, and been like, hey, anything you need, come find me. You know where our pit is. If you need absolutely anything, like, you can list it out. I will do my best to get this to you. And it was just so beautiful in the ways he could help us. And we were struggling a lot at Centennial, and is definitely thanks to him that we were able to, and as well as the other like people on our lines, but that we could get to those finals matches, that we could get to like winning Centennial. And it's even a cuter thing of like, he just had some extra food and brought it over to my team, and they got like extra food, which they loved, because comp is really tiring. So I just thought that not only was he supporting us, he was supporting, like, I turned around and he was helping another team. Like, him, I find, is such a beautiful example of gracious professionalism. And I thought, like, I could not give this pin anyone else but him.
All right, that sounds great, Ren. And what about you, Brandon?
So I need to preface it, but at Durham I was losing my safety glasses all the time. I was using new safety glasses and they weren't staying on my pants in the same way that my other ones do. I like
Staying
clipped
on
them
your
into my
pants?
pocket.
Oh,
Yeah, I clipped
okay.
them into my pocket.
I find that
Um,
if you clip them to your head, it helps.
Yeah, that one also works. But I had lost it one time and I just couldn't find them. Like, I was searching, but someone came over and they helped me. Like, their team had walked away, but they had stayed. They had helped me. They had made sure that I found my safety glasses and made sure that everything was okay. And I think that just really embodies gracious professionalism, making sure that someone in need gets the help that they have. So that's who I gave my pin to.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, this was great. We're going to start talking about the events and watching some match video. But before we do that, let's take a look at a word from one of our sponsors, Magna. All right, folks, we are back. So we're talking Durham College. So let's quickly take a look at the stats. Julia, if you want to pull those up. And so you'll notice a trend at the 4 events that we had. Oh, Julia, we want to go to slide 3. There we go. So we have 44-76. The Waffles went to their first event at Newmarket, lost in the finals to 54-09 and 49-46. But they got a lot. They were pretty good at Newmarket, but they got a lot better. And sorry, I'm getting an echo from someone. I'm not sure where that's coming from. But then let's talk about 88-84, folks. This team is special. They made a massive leap. They have one of the best floor intakes in the world this year. The way it just rapidly reorients and just sucks the coral right up into the robot. It is really, really fun to watch. They went to Centennial and they showed their high-end capability at Centennial, but also consistency wasn't just there yet. But they then spent a bunch of the March break at 610's practice field practicing and practicing and practicing. And they came into Durham and this machine was just like, whoo, it's just super, super fun to watch. And so that's a big gap. 4907 has a robot that was really solid, nice vacuum for algae, which was really neat to see. Did some really interesting things with guy wires to provide suspension for their elevator. And then 5406, who showed a lot of potential, although for most of the event, I talked to some of their mentors and students, they were doing everything manually, no camera adjustment. Yet they were still putting up the numbers, and they really got better throughout the event. So right here is Alliance 1. Right here is Alliance 2. You can kind of predict how this is probably going to shake out, folks. But let's take a look at the next slide, which will show you some more numbers. And there you see total EPA for the Alliance 1, 149. Total EPA for Alliance 2, 121. So it's a significant gap. For these alliances 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, these are all really, really strong alliances. But just for context, 2056 and 3683 on their own have a greater EPA than these entire alliances. And that's just talking about how big the top end is in Ontario, folks. These are really, really, really good alliances. And so that's just bringing some context here. But we're going to be taking a look at Alliance 1 versus Alliance 2 in the finals. I think that's what we're taking a look at. But if we drop the slides. Yeah, so we're going to be taking a look at final number 1 from Durham, featuring teams 4476, 8884, 8731 on red, 5406, 4907, and 2852 in blue. And folks, especially Brandon, who was at the event, feel free to jump in at any time while we're watching this to talk about what we're seeing on the screen. All right, let's take it away. And I always like to count the coral in auto because that's really going to tell the story in the match. And you see right away 8884 with that floor intake.
Oh, it's beautiful watching their auto. I was at the practice field, like the Crescent practice field while they were there, and they were really working so hard and like getting it to be like as beautiful as you just saw.
Yep, 6 in auto for the Red Alliance. Go on, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed also with human players with ground intakes, because you have to make sure that the coral is is rolling right into the right place. It's wild.
Well, you do, but with 8884, you don't, because they're so good at getting it. Like, it doesn't matter what orientation it's in. Like, just as watches, and by the way, we're talking about algae being scored here. They're plumb destroying all that reef algae. But just watch 8884. Like, I know there's 5 other teams here, but I can't. It just sucks it up. It's just right in there. It's so
super
cool.
It's super big, and getting to like get it seen up close, I found like all they're working on everything. Like, it just made me appreciate it that much more. Like, it's beautifully built.
Yeah, you definitely need, if you're at the provincial championship, to watch it up close. And now watching on the other side, like we got triple offense going on here by the Blue Alliance. So they are having 3 robots playing offense, and I think they decided to do that to try and see how else we're going to keep up with this Red Alliance. There's so much power here. The thing is, it allowed 4476 and 8884 to go completely undefended. So this is like a practice match for them right now. And as you can see, they're just pummeling the Coral. And so I think three offense can work at some levels in this game, but it's risky because if you're putting two teams who are this good with no defense, they're just going to cook.
And it's so
And
precise
also
too.
just
Go
I
on, Sydney.
go
remember
ahead.
watching the match with our scorekeeper who hadn't seen the game yet, and they thought that you had to keep the ball balanced on the Coral as part of the game for extra points. I'm like, no, they're just that clean. Like, you want to score the LG, you want to score the Coral.
By the way, shout out to the Waffles human player who's just loading, like just like how quickly they get in and out. Boom. Oh, they just missed one. I jinxed them. Of course I did.
Oh,
All right, now 88-84. Watch their climb in the end game here. Bottom right. They got one of those donut climbs. So they bring the whole cage inside their robot and then go up. That is so, so cool. Casual score here. And so we're going to jump ahead. Final score here. Red takes it as we watch the fishies. Let it go for a second. And do we get the summary? Stop. Oh, I guess we don't get the summary for long enough. 191. 191 points right there. So that, I mean, okay. 5406 and 4907. Put up 150 something. Lost. Got lost by a fair bit. But I mean, 5406 and 4907, that was their first event. So they're going to play another event, and one's going to 4907 is going to Windsor, 5406 is going to McMaster. They're going to be even better. But 8884 and 40, here's the thing about that 8884 machine. I don't think they've peaked yet. I think there's room for them to get better. And they were at Durham, which was a week 3 event, which means they've got 2 full weeks in between, like basically 3 weeks until provincials to improve. I think 88-84 is going to shock the world at provincials. I think they are going to be one of the top teams right there. They've got all facets of the game going. And for a team that no one was talking about before this season. Well, I mean, sorry, they were talking about because they knew, but the rest of us didn't. It is fantastic to see that leap. And so I would not be surprised to see them on Alliance 1 or Alliance 2 in either the science or technology division at provincials as the captain or the first pick. Like, let's be real. That robot is just really, really good. Other thoughts on this match from Durham?
I think how fast 8084 and 4476 were able to clear that reef of all that algae made the cycling that much faster. And you could see how messy it got on the other alliance where there was algae everywhere, coral everywhere. How was it? I think it was 1, 2, 3, like 4 robots hanging out all there. Like, it really made it that much more difficult to keep scoring. And I think it let that big divide between the red and blue scores.
And the other thing that I've started to see as well as we've gone like throughout the season is just it comes down to how quick the human players can throw it into the robot for when it's a shoot intake. Just because like and we saw it with Waffles. They were ready. They were always just throwing one in as fast as they could. And that's really what it comes down to, it's looking like.
Well, and Brandon, you know what that comes down to? It's practice and just how
Yeah.
often the human player is getting reps. And so, like, I say this a lot of times when people are like, when you're making a pick list, obviously there's data. What are like some non-data things that you can look at? I've always, as a scout, liked to watch drive teams and see how they react. And so, how quickly drivers step up to the line after autonomous mode. Because it's like the ones who just kind of diddle on, it's like, they're not trying. But the teams who take it seriously and just like are right in there, and you see that with human players this year. There's some who are kind of like, but like the Waffles and all the other top teams are firing it in, just not messing it around. And then a robot that's not theirs will come, but will have learned. They'll ask the question, how's the best way to load your robot? The number one determiner of cycle length in FRC is the amount of time. Well, it's 2 things: how much time you spend intaking and how much time you spend releasing. And the intaking means how fast your human player can feed it. And this year, when you're talking about the fastest teams in the world are doing cycles at around 5 seconds long, half a second actually makes a difference. If you're consistently half a second slower, you are multiple cycles behind. and that matters. In most games, it doesn't. And so, yeah, the human player being aggressive and just tossing it in there, as opposed to the human player who's just dropping it in, or kind of looking around and waiting for, is it the right time? No, it's just let it go and go. And then for the drivers to know that it's in there, some teams use sensors for that and to know if it's in there, while others are looking, others are using sensors that trigger LEDs, whatever, but like no guessing. This is we're really approaching an F1 era of FRC, and reaction times absolutely matter in this game, which is not been true always, but because of the amount of cycles teams are doing, when you're like 2056, who can in some matches has done 30 cycles, like we're talking about sub 5 seconds, and so every split second matters. So it's really really neat. All right, I'm pumped. I'm excited. At the Durham event, we want to recognize all the teams, but especially the ones who walked away with some big awards. Winners, Team 4476 Waffles from Kingston, 8884 Night Owls from Toronto, and 8731 Wild Wire from Lindsay. By the way, the Night Owls, they wear chickens on their heads. And I asked them, if you're the Night Owls, why do you wear chickens on your heads? And they're like, what are you talking about? These are owls. I'm like, there you are, chickens. Don't trick me. They're like, no, these are owls. All I have to say to all of that is, ooh, ooh, ooh. Brandon, did you hear there was an owl loose at the Durham event? Did
I
you hear
did.
that?
I did hear
Yeah.
the owl. Yeah.
Yeah, there was just an owl every so often. You just hear it go, ooh. Wait, is the owl here? Ooh, ooh, ooh. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh.
Bizarre. Maybe the owl followed me home. Who knows? Finalists, Team 5406 Celtex from Hamilton, 4907 Thunderstamps from St. Thomas, and 2852 DM High Voltage from St. Catharines, their second finalist of the season. Who knows? Yeah, that's a good point. Corralga Steep. Dean's List winners, Megan S. from Team 4476 Waffles from Kingston, and Elroy from Team 7712 Umoja from Scarborough. Engineered inspiration, well deserved, goes to Team 5406 Celtex in Hamilton. They've been doing so much in the community over the years, especially with the Robodrome and supporting teams, and their Open Alliance project has been really cool. And the Impact Award winner, Team 7712 Umoja. They won it at Provincials last year. They're going back to Provincials to compete for Impact. This team, check them out, talk to them. They are doing so much. They do STEM literacy courses for seniors. I've lost track of the amount of amazing things they do. Just a true role model team. So big fans of them. All right, folks. Anything else to say on Durham, Brandon?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
All right. Well, then we're going to hop on the 401 and head on down to Humber College, and we'll be back to do that. Oh, sorry, Humber Polytechnic, and we'll be back to do that in just a couple seconds. All right, folks, we are back for talking about the Humber College event. The Humber College, so Durham ended on Sunday night, and teams started loading into Humber on Monday. It was a wild transition for anyone who was at both events. So let's take a look at the stat slides. And I get the magic red pen out. All right, folks. Another similar story. 7558 was the story of this event. So they, like our friends 8884, have the ground intake. It's a different style of ground intake, unlike 8884s. 8884s will reorient the coral from whatever orientation it comes from. Well, 7558 needs to get the coral in that orientation. Well, guess what? Doesn't really slow them down much. Multi-jointed arm, which allows for fine positioning of the coral. And they also have a very quick deep climb that they were executing at the end of the match. And so we see that they're right there. 4976 Revolt. They had a good competition at Newmarket, but then really came out on fire for Humber. And they paired up with 7558, and that formed a really, really strong alliance. But I want to talk about team 2935 Naki, 2935 Naki. This is a team. So they 88-84 this year reminds me of Naki last year. Naki made the leap last year. They went from a team that was traditionally like a end of the second round pick to solid high captain, and they were just cooking in the front zone last year. This year, they went from tank drive to swerve, and they built a really solid robot. Sydney, you saw them after this event
Yep.
at North Bay with a third place finish there, but and we'll see them here with a deep climb that doesn't fully work, but they got it dialed in for North Bay, which was really cool to see. But it was a really interesting one. Now, this event 7520 was on Alliance 2. Actually, let's just jump to the next slide. So we see here Alliance 2 with 7520 and 9785. So first again, we see the EPA gap. Right now in Ontario, there is a lot of good teams, but usually it's seeming that at most of these events, now North Bay is the exception where it got a little bit twisty. There's been two teams who are kind of like a leg above, and that's why it's been so important to be on the number one alliance. And once you're on the number one alliance, things like, hey, Ren, you were there, you were on the number one alliance at Centennial, you know how good it is. But here you kind of would have thought that number two would have had a really big advantage, but they got a red card in their early match in the upper bracket, got sent to the lower bracket, could not fight their way through the lower bracket. Anyone who goes to the lower bracket early will tell you it is hard. You just have to play match after match after match. It is hard to get back up. And then all of a sudden, 50-32, the Falcons, another team who kind of made a leap this year, and Naki ended up in the finals. And so that's what we're going to be taking a look at here as we bring the slide down and I get back to my notes. We're going to be looking at final one from Humber featuring teams 75-58, 49-76, and 10-279 in red, one of our rookie teams, Erudites, against 50-32, 29-35, and 71-36. Ren, I know you weren't at Humber, but you obviously got a behind-the-scenes look at 75-58, as up close as you can get, being part of their drive team. Well, being part of their Alliance's drive team at Centennial. So tell me what we should be watching from 75-58 in this match as we get the match started.
I think it's really their human players are. I believe they had two. Their human players are really, really talented, and they are so focused that I found as a human player myself, although I wasn't at the coral station, collaborating with them, they're really focused and they know what they're doing.
All right, so let's take a look at the match.
I'm also really excited. I don't think I fully watched it, but I've seen 50-32. I seeing the robot at Centennial, and just seeing them as finalists and alliance captains here it's incredible.
Yep. It's really one of the coolest things about the district system, and now with no bag, is how much teams can improve during the season. And even 29-35, I know we're talking about their Humber performance, but they got considerably better for North Bay, which was only like 2 days after Humber. So, as we watch here, watch the ground intake of 75-58 and the multi-adjustments of that arm there with the coral. And again, we've seen some algae being taken out of the reef, while the Blue Alliance has a lot of algae in the reef. And as Sydney pointed out, keeping algae in the reef for too long can slow you down.
Nice shot by that Blue Alliance human player.
Yeah. It's 75-58. So one thing you'll watch how their human player will load the coral. Sometimes, so they're not doing it here, but sometimes they'll load two at a time, where they'll use one to propel the other one through the chute, which is a really neat sort of trick. I was hoping we'd see it here. But there's just a lot of coral out there for 75-58, and they take advantage of the short cycles. While on the other hand, 49-76 doing the full cycles human player, and it's one of those fast chute loaded teams. The chutes, are really, really effective because it's a big target for the human players. Brandon earlier was talking about how important the human players are with their loading. Well, a lot of teams made life a lot easier for these human players with these really large chutes. And if you watch on the other side, and oh no, 10-279 is stuck on algae. Algae is just the worst, right? It's just
Seen
everyone
so many
gets stuck
robots
on it.
beached.
Yeah, it's not fun. They're using their elevator to try and get out. Good luck to you. Yeah, algae claims another victim. It's like,
These floor intake robots are really cool. I didn't get to see too many of them in North Bay, but it's just amazing. They can just shoot the coral onto the floor and the robots just come and clean them up.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, let's hear. So watch 75-58. Watch how quickly they can get their climb in. So once they get it lined up, so they'll hold here because they know they don't want to be hanging for too long. So they'll wait, they'll wait, they'll wait. And boom, up.
Easy.
Wow,
Yeah.
crazy. I know
Says,
that as Centennial, I got to like, I was right as the process of human play. I got to see that beautiful climb up close, and it's a marvel.
and there we go. Let's see if we can get the 175 to 133. Another big score. Again, 133 is the losing score. Like, with these, if you're going to be in the finals in Ontario, you're going to put up a massive score. And not both alliances can't win. That's just by the rules of how it goes. And so that's what we see there. But 90 coral points, and it's still not enough. But 75-58 now, that is their second win of the season. That is second win as the #1 seed. That's max points, except if they had won chairman's. Oh, sorry. How many years am I still calling it that word? Impact and EI. They are top in the province in district points, I believe, right now. So 75-58, absolutely cooking. 49-76, great performance. And hey, 10-79, winning event as a rookie team. That's our second rookie event champion this year after Bubbles did it at Newmarket, which is pretty cool. We can take the match down right now, folks. But fabulous stuff there. Naki, that was 50-32's last event before provincials. Well, Naki went on to North Bay where they finished in third place. But recognizing our winners, team 75-58, Alt F4 from North York, 49-76, Revolt Robotics from Georgetown, and 10-79, the Erudites from Stouffville. And the finalists, 50-32, the Falcons from Mississauga. By the way, I'm a big fan of that team just because they wear water wings before every match. Sydney, did you hear about this?
No.
Yeah, they wear
What?
water wings because it's a water game and you wouldn't want to drown.
I love this. Okay.
Yes, safety first.
Mhm.
29-35, Naki Robotics, one of my favorites, and 71-36, Titanium Titans from Etobicoke. Dean's List at the event goes to Shane Y from 75-20 Mindkey and Alana E from 31-61 the Tronic Titans. Engineering Inspiration to Team 75-20 Mindkey. And the Impact Award to Team 57-19 Pink Titans. So a little known fact about the Pink Titans, they've run an FLL Explorer event. They've run an FLL Challenge event. They run a First Tech Challenge event. So they're running events for all the other programs while still building a competitive robot for FRC. So no surprise there with the Impact Award. That's their second straight year of winning a district Impact Award. So that one's cool to see. Very deserving team. All right. Anything anyone wants to say on Humber?
I'm not surprised that Bubbles won, because with a name like Bubbles, of course you're gonna rise to the top.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Everyone loves Bubbles. A big fan, big fan. All right, folks, that is it from Humber. So we're gonna be coming back. We're gonna hop on the highway again, keep going on the 401, but then hop onto the 8 and then the 86, then get off at University Avenue, and then we're gonna go all the way. We're gonna turn right onto Ring Road, and then we're gonna go left or right on Ring Road because you can go either way. But we're gonna go right, jump off the physical activities complex for the water
Lulu.
in 17 seconds. See you, folks. All right, folks, we're back, and we're going to play a little history game here, do a little history lesson. In 2006, there was a world high score set at the Waterloo event. Teams 11-14, 15-03, and I want to say 12-9, someone. In 2007, there was a world high score set at the Waterloo event with teams 11-14, 20-56, and 7-7-1. In 2008, there was a world high score set at the Waterloo event. 2056, 11-14, and 16-80. 2010, there was a world high score set at the Waterloo event. Match 11-14 against 2056. 2013, there were 4 world high scores set in the playoffs by 11-14 and 2056 and 37-56. 2015, 11-14 and 2056 hit 4 high scores at that event. World record high scores. When I'm saying this, 2016, I think it was 148 and 2056 in a qual match might have hit the world high score. 2017, Waterloo was the first event where an alliance did Um, I believe it was four rotors and the not algae, whatever it was called, the boiler, the wiffle balls in the boiler. Sydney, what was that one? Help me out.
You're talking about Steamworks? I think it was the
Steamworks.
boiler, was it not?
Yeah, but what were the
The
balls
power
called?
cells? The fuel cells. Fuel
Fuel
cells.
cells. There we go. Fuel. Tw 2019, I think there was a world high score, 2056 and 3683. So Waterloo, it happened again. Two world record high scores with a combination of 4678 and 3683. So let's take a look at the stats slides here, folks. And why was there world high scores? Well, I'll tell you why. Because there we go. When you have the number 6 team in the world, and I think what were they, like 10 or 12 on the same alliance, that's what's going to happen. So 3683 had played already at Niagara. Algae and Coralbot, no deep climb, no ground to take, didn't matter. Just fastest cycles back and forth with that massive funnel. 4678, I was a little surprised by this year because I for sure thought they'd have a ground intake. Just because it's just the nature of what they do with their arms and the joints and everything. But they didn't. But boy, were they quick with Coral. Brandon, tell me more about their robot. Or Ren, both of you were there.
Um, I actually really like their robot this year. They have a like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like a circle is their placement mechanism. And it like brings it in and then it shoots it down. And they almost pick up momentum throughout the match. You'll look at first and you'll be like, oh, they have like two coral in L4. You'll turn your head and you'll look again, and the entire L4 is full. And it's just wild. Like
It is, they are so fast. And the 4678, I like to call them the world's best secret because last year they won provincials with 2056, dominant performance. But then chose not to go to the world championship. So lots of teams around the world don't know that this is one of the best teams in the world. And they really showed it at Waterloo. I hope everyone is watching these matches. Hey, we're going to watch it so everyone here can see it, just how good 4678 is. So let's jump to the next slide. And we see our alliances. So like, hey, hold on. A combined EPA of 133 right here for alliance number 2. They are still 60 points on combined EPA behind alliance 1. 95.6 for Dave, 85 for 4678. It's another stratosphere. And like for everyone who's like, oh, all you do over on this show is talk about 2056. Well, here, folks, we're not talking about them right now. We are talking about two of the other best teams in the world, 3683 and 4678. And look, this was 4678's first event. They're going to get better. Especially with a robot that has some complexities like every 4678 robot does. They always get better during the season. And what's that going to look like? So instead of watching a finals match, we're going to watch one of the world high scores in this one. And so we've got 4678, 3683, and 9263 in red. This is round 1, match 1 from the upper bracket, up against 8089, 8764, and 6135 in blue. So let's jump to the match.
This is so wild. I think when provincials comes, like usually you're like, oh, 2056, 1114, they're probably going to be on the top. This year, the playing field is so level. I wouldn't be surprised by any of these teams taking it home.
It is fantastic. There's just so many teams where I think the top 4 alliances in either division will be alliances that could have Einstein quality. It might not with the third robot because like the depth of championship is just immense of what you can get. But oh man, when it comes to the top 2 robots on because I think there's gonna be I think by the time we get to provincials, we could have 16 teams in Ontario in the top 150 in the world. And it's look out, look out, look out, look out. All right, let's take a look at the video, folks. All right, that video is coming up any second now, I know, but yeah, so this was a world high score, and here we go. So um let's oh, we've already started. Okay, so let's just keep going and just watch this auto mode right here. So as we're seeing, can we go back to the start of the match actually? Because I think we missed a lot here. All right, let's take a look and watch the Red Alliance auto mode because it's a double four piece, which is what we saw at Niagara 2056 and 3683, but it happens again. And it's just, I mean,
Lick.
yeah.
Beautiful. And that's what it is. It's gorgeous.
Oh, actually, did they not get the double four piece there? Okay, yeah, Dave just missed there. So it was a 4 and a 3. But now, right away, the algae starts coming. And like they're already at the 70-point mark. And there's still 2 minutes left.
I remember talking to Dave after this match, and I was like, you guys just tied the high score that you set previously, and they're like, yeah, if we got that one more auto coral, we would have beat it. And I was like, it's such a high score already. It's not.
But Brandon, this is why the best teams are the best teams, because they look at a high score like that and they're celebrating, but they're not like, oh, this is the greatest moment ever. They're like, no, what can we do more? And that's
It's
how you
awesome to
get to
see.
be the best. Yeah, it's always like, how can we get better? Team Dave came to Niagara and dominated that event, won with 2056, but then they continued to work to get better. And that's what it takes. There's no like, oh yeah, we're good. We won an event. Nah. We'll talk about that with 5409 when we get to North Bay, who similarly. Oh my God, they're at 157 points. There's a minute left.
Oh my gosh.
The reef is there's still 5 spots.
Full.
It's almost there. It's just, actually the real-time scoring is not keeping up with how quickly they've scored, which is hilarious. Look at how quickly 4678 is doing these L2s.
It's like instant. But I think we didn't get to see it in this match, but something that I got to see while I was at Waterloo was, I believe, perhaps I'm thinking of the wrong robot, but they had a separate algae mechanism, like to take it off, like a dealgification one. But their intake, or like what they use to score, that really interesting circle thing that they use to score algae, they were able to dealgify with that. And it made it so much faster cycles that you could see since
Did
the
you
early
just
matches.
say de-algify?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that
Put it
That
on
is definitely
t-shirt.
not a word. That is
That's
definitely
the
not a
proper.
word.
That's the slang term for this season.
No,
All words
no,
need to
folks,
start
can we,
somewhere. All words need to start somewhere. It started here. De-algify. You heard it first.
no,
Ren,
folks,
Oh,
can
it's definitely not the
no,
words.
no. So seriously, can we respect the
talked
English
about it so
language
much.
at some point? Like, okay, look at that barge. How much algae is up there? Oh my goodness.
Oh,
249, folks. And as Brandon said, they could have done more.
yeah.
There was definitely something left on the table there. And it's only with 16 barge points. What if Team Dave shows up at provincials with a climb? Or like if that's 4678 and I don't know, 8884, who does have a climb? Like there's not many more points because it's hard to get more than 249. And there was definitely some processor help there where there was a lot of algae processed by Alliance 8, which ended up putting up some big points for Alliance 8, which helped. Alliance 8 had 125 points in that match, and they almost got doubled.
Well,
It's so like, do we see 249 broken at provincials? Yeah. Do we see it broken at MAC? Maybe. But I don't know how much higher it's going to get because it's that algae score of 60 is very, very big, and it's going to be hard to get much beyond that. Do we see more double barges? Do we see triple barge at provincials? Probably not in the playoffs. I don't think it's that deep or whatever. I don't know. Nothing would surprise me now, but what I do think is 4678 was only at their first event. They're going to get better. Dave looks like they still have some room to get better, which is terrifying to say. This is how good these teams are.
exhilarating. I'm so excited. Provincials out of the water.
And folks, let's not jump too far ahead to provincials because this weekend at Windsor, we'll get to see teams like 46, 78, and 90, 4907. At McMaster, we get to see 2056 again. We get to see 2200 again. Get to see 45406 again. Get to see 1114 again. 1325, who struggled at their first event. Hey, they're not going to struggle twice in a row. They are not. I'm sure they've had since week one to work on that robot. I think 1325 is going to come out and be. I wouldn't be surprised if 1325 shows up with like a four piece. Like, it's exciting. Ontario, it's where it's at. All right, winners from this event: 4678 Cybercabs from Breslau, 3683 Team Dave. Fun fact: it's not Breslau, it's Breslau. I got that wrong for many years, and they told me a couple years ago, so I always make a point of pointing it out. Breslau, not Breslau. Brandon, you're from the area. You probably knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's what we call the airport. So
Oh, what you call the airport. I love it. Hey, and let's not forget completing that alliance, 9263, the ALD Lions played some solid defense there. That was really impressive. Finalists, 4039 Makeshift Robotics, their second finalist of the year, along with 2852's had two finalists. 9098, the Firehawks from Oakville, and 4617, Dawn from London. Dean's List goes to Alexander Y from 1360 Orbit Robotics and Ryan P from 4039 Makeshift Robotics. Engineering Inspiration also goes to Makeshift. So they've got an Impact Award and an Engineering Inspiration this year. That's a nice combo to have. And the Impact Award goes to Team 77. Who?
772.
There we go. Oh, we lost Sydney. Hopefully Sydney comes back soon. So congratulations to all those teams. But folks, we are going to hop back on the highway, go up Highway 11, and get ourselves all the way to North Bay to talk about the North Bay event. And we'll do that in just a few seconds. Okay, folks, we are back, and now we're talking North Bay, so let's do the thing. Let's look at the stats. All right, if we can go full screen, there we go. So, folks, this one got interesting because, so 5409, they made a massive leap, and just in efficiency, they made efficiency leaps, not inefficiency. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. And 4946. But these two did not get together. As we talked about earlier, Sydney mentioned 610 with a massive push to get the number one seed. And then they had to make a choice between 4946 and 5409. And that's a hard choice. You see them up there in the stats. 4946, so 610 doesn't do algae. 5409 doesn't do algae. Probably makes sense to pick the algae bot. But that meant 5409 was then able to pick 4152. And all of a sudden you see here, we have because these two are together and these two are together. And now we have a balanced final. So, which is similar to what happened at Centennial, where we had a very balanced final there, as Ren knows, as you were right there for that. And this one was off the hook. And it went to 3 matches. Sydney, who won the first match?
Oh, it went to 2 matches actually. And the other fascinating thing is 5409 and 610 were on the same alliance during Newmarket, and they won Newmarket that way. 4152 was on the opposing alliance. So it was really cool to see them.
Sorry, who was on the same alliance at Newmarket?
I believe it was 5409 and 610, or was it 5409 and 4946?
5409 and 4946.
Okay, thank you for the correction. So it was really interesting to see them on like the opposite sides during this match. But yeah, it went to 2 rounds. Alliance 2 actually won both of them, so 5409 and 4152.
All right, and so let's jump to the next slide. And we see, so there's the balance right there. And you can actually see the EPA advantage was to alliance number 2 because a 5409 was just so far ahead. And so we see this mix up, right here, kind of the cross and, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there you go right there. So it forms for a really, really exciting final, which we're going to watch here. And so we're going to be taking a look at final two. And we already know who won. Cindy has told us all who's won, but let's jump ahead.
Sorry, I mean there was
No!
3 matches. There was totally 3.
There we
There's
go.
a
Yeah,
secret
yeah,
third
yeah.
one. Um, and this final is super cool because you'll notice the whole time they're very closely matched.
Well, and you know, so this one is going to be really interesting, and I'm glad we got the reef cameras here because it's almost like they go up in parallel as you watch them here, and it's like a really back and forth match. So let's take a look at the excitement here. And for me, I'm going to really be focusing on 5409 in this match because I just love how quickly they get to the human player, and they just the robot is it's simple, but it's so effective.
So nice. 4152 also rebuilt their entire intake in 11 days. Yeah, they rebuilt it, they recoded it, and then they were able to actually run simulations on the code before this competition. So going back to what Karthik was saying before, the amount of time teams have to iterate between matches and the amount of iteration they're able to do is extraordinary compared to back when we were on teams.
And you can see right here, so like red had a 20-point lead, but then blue just sucked it right back up. And it's just a matter of like sometimes the lead just kind of alternates by on where the cycles are. And it's so close. Like, and now you see as it ties up right here. And the rate of the refill is so similar. And this was just this is what you like to see how well balanced it is. Even the algae is equal up in the barge right now, like up top. And you know, 610, their elevator is so fast. It's also very loud, but just up. And you know, modern FRC comes down to a lot of things. Some ways it's a software challenge, but a lot of modern FRC is just do the thing, but do it faster than everyone else. And speed kills. And so we see that in how quickly 5409 gets to loader. We see that in 610's elevator. We see that in 4946's quick release at the reef. Like when they get in position, just with that rotation, it's just boom, it's on. They kind of like dunk it onto the reef. And so all these teams are doing something really quick. And you can see 5409 and 4152 were slightly faster in their cycles. 5409 was slightly faster than 4946, and 4152 was slightly faster than 610. And those slight differences explain where the lead is right now. As you can see that the Red Alliance has moved on to level 2, while the Blue Alliance is still working on L3. And those slight differences that we talked about, the quarter seconds and cycles, this is where you see it paying off. And it does make a difference in these matches.
So can I say, you said the robot was really loud. Couldn't even tell at North Bay.
Oh, really?
The
Oh,
stands were so loud. It was incredible.
we've
Couldn't
had
even.
a lot of loud events this year because Centennial was the same. So here we come down to the final. We see the climbs in there, both two climbs for the Blue Alliance right there, but it's still not enough. 195 to 84. And so, you know, since we're paused right here, the Blue Alliance getting the 24 barge points, two climbs, but it's still not enough to overcome the difference in coral and the difference in algae. And 11-point match. Brandon, you were talking about teams losing in the 170s. They put up 184 points and
Yeah,
didn't win.
it's crazy just how competitive Ontario is this year.
I mean, like this 195, like we just talked about how amazing that was. If at Waterloo, that wouldn't have been good enough to win some of those matches, some of those playoff matches.
250.
The
Yeah.
level is higher. The scores that OP and Dave were putting up at Niagara, not good enough to beat what Dave and the Cybercavs were doing at Waterloo. Now that matchup can't happen because Dave can't be on both alliances, which would be awesome and terrifying at the same time. So I did red underline over here, but there you go. You see, I don't know, folks. I am impressed. This is just really good. As we take the slides down, the one thing is scores could continue to get higher and higher, but there is another option that the defense comes in. So we saw this at Worlds last year, 254 and 1323. Everyone kind of thought that they were going to be able to steamroll, but they ran into a defensive robot, 321. Now they had their own defensive robot, 294, who was shutting people down. But then they ran into 321 and they were able to slow them down. And so I wonder at provincials, is there going to be a defensive stopper? Is there going to be so a team who converts from offense, who has a well-driven swerve drive, who's going to play D and can slow these teams down? Some will say that maybe you can slow down a funnel team by blocking the human loading station. Others would that, but some will also say that can't slow down a floor intake team. I
Do
don't know.
you do you think that a defensive strategy works better during quals or playoffs or both? Because you want to
Uh,
get those RPs during quals.
I think
I think
if I'm a team who wants to get picked for defense, I want to play defense in quals so people can see me do it. Because otherwise, what am I picking based on? So I think it's the best way to get picked for defense is to shut down a top team. Then everyone pays attention. I'll use the best example in Ontario was Team 771 in 2019. They consistently in their qual matches would, go. Like, there was one match they infamously just mauled 11-14, and then 11-14, 12-41 picked them, and they won provincials together. I think if you want to get the attention of the top teams, you have to play defense. Now, it's tough because you're right, Sydney. They might be giving up an RP to do it. And they have to make sure that their alliance partners are okay with it because it has to be a group decision. One team can't go rogue and say, oh, forget about the RP. No, no, no. There's actually rules against this sort of stuff. So it has to be an alliance decision to say, hey, this is a strategy that we want to try. But I think we've all seen it that the defense always turns up during playoffs. It's like that first playoff match, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, this is how we're playing now, but so far in Ontario, I've not seen defense really slow teams down. I think the closest was I think at Niagara, Pink Titans played some solid defense and was able to slow some folks down, but right now, but I don't know. I'll still talk about this. There was one qualifying match in Newmarket where Revolt 4976 played defense. And man, they looked good. But a team at provincials, a team like Revolt's probably playing offense in the playoffs. But I don't know. Right now, unofficial stats have like about 81% of the teams in Ontario having swerve drives. So there'll be plenty of swerve bots to play D. I don't know. It's hard. I mean, Ren, you're on a drive team this year. How much can you see on the other side of the field from behind the glass?
As I mentioned, as a human player, I've been behind the coral station and then also the processor.
Yeah.
So I definitely can see that other side of the field from being the processor human player.
Yeah,
And
but that's what I'm talking about is like behind the glass. Like how much
oh,
can we
it's
see?
hard. Like I've
Yeah.
talked again with my driver, and he has played defense. We played defense
Yeah.
during Centennial,
Centennial.
the third robot, and like he did a fantastic job. But it's that like if you do not have a great center of gravity, and if you are trying to push someone, you're just going to get pushed, and then you're going to get penalties if you go into that reef. So it's being very careful about your movement, but still trying to still trying to shut down this other robot.
So some of the best defense I saw was in California, 254's Alliance with 1678. They literally had their third robot just park in front of a station and not move. Ridiculously effective compared to other teams, because other teams spent so much time chasing. They just got to the middle of the coral station, and the other alliance had to send both robots to the other coral station. And that alone can slow it down. So my advice for anyone out there who's playing defense, spend less time chasing and more time holding a position. It's much easier to control. Like if you're playing defense by chasing, it's just not going to work. You need to know where you're going. And if you, I'm not saying just sit there and don't move necessarily, but hold the spot. Hold the spot. Don't, team gets in, they get by you and they grab one piece of coral. Don't chase them out because as Ren said, if you chase them out, you might chase them into the reef. Tech foul comes. Tech foul comes again. And you want to play defense ineffectively, it's get penalties. Penalties are the thing that can derail a top alliance so quickly. We talked about 75-20's alliance going down to the lower bracket. That was because their partner, it wasn't their fault. Partner died in front of a loading station, but while pinning an opposing robot. And so the opposing robot also died, but so it's just pinning penalty after pinning penalty. So it was 12 pinning penalties that were counted, and it was given a red card as well. So like, got to be careful playing defense. So I can get why people don't want to take the risk, but I don't know, like if you're playing 49, 46-78 and 36-83, and they're putting up 250 points, and you know your alliance can't top 140, 150. So only get within 100 points. You got to do something, right? You can't just, hope is not a strategy, folks. So maybe defense lowers the scores. I'm not sure. I think we'll see. But you know what? I'm excited to find out. I am very, very excited to find out. Okay, North Bay, before we wrap this up, we got to talk about our award winners. Winners, Team 5409, the Chargers from Oakville, 4152, Hoya Robotics from Huntsville. I got to say, 4152, they happen to be from what I think is the most beautiful city in the province. Huntsville, summertime, absolutely gorgeous. Just throwing that one out there. 3756 Ramferno from London. Good to see them back in the winner's circle. Finalists, Team 610 Crescent Coyotes. Also their second finalist of the year, finalists at Centennial. 4946 the Alpha Dogs from Bolton, and 6987 Falcon Automation from Fenland Falls. Dean's List, we got a double Dean's List here, both from Team 4069 Lowell and Robotics, Dane G and Jessica A. Very, very exciting. Engineering Inspiration goes to Team 6865 Manitoulin Metal. And folks, the Impact Award. I said we'd get back to Shep.
I love this one so much.
Shep with the Impact Award, Team 2706 Merge Robotics. Sydney, talk to us about Merge.
I've been saying for a long time is that I want to see teams go out into the communities and not just make more robotics teams, but show that they're inspired by science and technology and they're leveraging that to make a difference. And what 2706 is doing, it's not just extra robots in our community. They're helping with like sandbags and they're making a difference with sand. And I think that's so cool. I love it. It's just you're showing that you're inspired and you're actually embodying the values of what FIRST is in a practical way.
We have some phenomenal Impact Award winners in Ontario this year, which that competition at provincials is also going to be wild to see which two teams advance there, because I know that all 7 who've won it so far are incredibly deserving and could win at provincials. So it's exciting. Just good things are happening here. All right, folks. We have talked a lot about a lot of great events, but we got 2 more this weekend. We got Windsor going on. We got McMaster going on. So everyone enjoy that. Also, folks, Thursday. This is just like a Karthik thing, but it's opening day of baseball season. The Jays are back, baby. The Jays are back. So we're going to be watching baseball this weekend. We're going to be watching FRC. We're going to be watching some college basketball. Women's Sweet 16, men's Sweet 16 in the States is going on. There's just so much going on right now. Weather is getting better. Brandon's going to go for some walks. Ren's going to be reading some books. Sydney, what else are you going to be doing?
My partner and I've gone to my husband and we've gone into Magic lately. So I'm going to be
nice.
playing some Magic the Gathering in my downtime with friends. And it's so nice.
I haven't seen you since you got married. Congratulations, Sydney.
Thank you so much. I'll have to show
Yeah.
you some wedding pics.
Yeah,
At competition, we had a Star Wars Day wedding. So it's really fun.
I can't wait, Sydney. We get to reunite at provincials, and all of us get to reunite at provincials. Feels so good. All right, folks, this was a great show. Brandon, Ren, Sydney, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for bringing the energy. And also, thanks so much for all those stories of gracious professionalism. That was really, really fun. All right, folks, we are back in 1 week. We'll be recapping Windsor, Essex, Great Lakes, and McMaster, and maybe doing a provincials preview if we got the divisions dropped. Oh, who even knows? But it'll be a good show next week. Everyone, stay safe out there. Stay healthy because you want to be ready for provincials. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and thank you to our producers and all our moderators in chat. And we will see everyone in 1 week. Bye, folks.
Bye.